in the system, but I don't know how that's going to play out. So I'm going to record it and potentially put it on YouTube. I'm going to figure this out. Okay, so real quick, we're just going to whip through the note, and this will take like 5 minutes. I'm not even kidding. So I need to go here. Yes. So I'm using Smart, like the smartboard thing. Okay, so hopefully it works. It was a little choppy this morning. So this is the note, and it's the intro to Sohcahtoa. So the nice thing about this unit is honestly, if you knew Trig last year, you're not going to learn anything new. And that's not because we're doing this class online or whatever. It's because Trig is Trig, and there's only sine law, cosine law, and Sohcahtoa, and Pythagorean theorem, right? You can make the triangles a little more difficult, but a triangle's a triangle, right? So that's really straightforward. So I'm just going to read over this note. That's it. And then after I'm done the note, on the next page here, okay, so you guys have access to this entire thing on the class site. What I'd like you guys to do tonight is go over these questions and try these questions, and then tomorrow we will take them up. And then that'll be it for the week, because tomorrow's Thursday, week's over, and then we'll continue on Tuesday. We'll get back on Tuesday. So remember, the trig ratios are Sohcahtoa. So I don't know. Oh, it's right down here. Okay, so it says we're down here. See if this works. Sohcahtoa are the trig ratios: sine, cosine, tan. And these are only for right angles. Okay, so a right angle is, you guys know, 90 degrees. Okay, so 90-degree angles are right angles. And if you have a right angle triangle, this guy right here, then you can use Sohcahtoa. And to use Sohcahtoa, you need to be able to label the triangle. So what we do is there's always an angle of interest, okay, and it's never the right angle. It's another angle, okay? And from that angle of interest, whatever we're asked to look at, we label the triangle, and we label it, first of all, we start from across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. Across from the angle of interest is what we call opposite. Oh, and what's left over is adjacent. Okay, so if I had a triangle that looked like this, same triangle here, and now I'm looking over from here, let's say that's the important angle. Here's your hypotenuse, across from the right angle. Okay, across from the angle of interest is what we call opposite. Okay, opposite of the angle of interest, and what's left over is adjacent. If you go in that order, that's adjacent. That's obviously an A. Not, yep, as you can see. If you go in that order, you'll never mess up, okay? Because sometimes you can mess up with the hypotenuse and label it adjacent or opposite by accident, okay? So once you have those labeled, you can then figure out which of the trig ratios we're going to look at. So if you have both the opposite and the hypotenuse, then you can use sine. If you have the adjacent hypotenuse, you can have cos, and if you have tangent, is to be used with opposite and adjacent. So you're always going to have two things, okay? You're actually going to have three things in a triangle. You're going to have, it's a right angle. You're going to have two of the side lengths, or a side length and a second angle. If you have that, you can solve the whole triangle, which means you can figure out everything that you don't know. Today's work is I have two sides. What's the angle length? Okay, angle size, sorry. So let's look at this one here. We have this guy here, and it says, look at side A, the length of side A. Sorry, I'm wrong. I lied. Today we're going to have an angle and a side, and we're going to find a second side length. Okay, tomorrow is find the angle, or next day is find the angle. Okay, so here we have an angle, we have a side, and then we're asked to find side A. Now, one thing we want to look at here is that side A is across from big A. Big A is the angle, little a is the side, big C is this angle. Across from that would be little c, B, and B. Now, don't get confused. This is still going to be opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent, but we can also refer to them as little a, little b, little c. Okay? So, real quick, I'm just going to peek over to see if anyone posted any questions, because... Any questions? No? Okay, back here. Okay. If you have a mic, interrupt me if you have any questions. Okay, so what you do here is you have to label the triangle before we move forward in any way. So this is the angle of interest because we know it. Okay, and then you're going to label this across from the right angle as hypotenuse. Okay, so there's your hypotenuse, HYP, or just H. Across from here, which is the angle that we know, is the opposite. Okay, so I'm going to label these, even if I don't use them, I'm going to label that opposite. And across, and what's left over is what we call the adjacent. Okay, so ADJ. So that's the adjacent. Okay, hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. Okay, now this is also called little a because it's across from little a. So here we ask ourselves, what two sides do we know one side and we want to find the other side? What are they as far as hypotenuse, adjacent, and opposite? And here, this is the hypotenuse, this is the adjacent. So if you have hypotenuse and adjacent, that's H and A. You look over here and you say, which of these has H and A in them, or A and H in them? And it's this one. So we're going to use cos. So you write it out like this. Cos of the angle is, so what you do is you write, or I'll tell you what you write. You write this again, okay? Look at me. I'm such a good circler, okay? I like to blame technology, but you guys know I'm not much better in class, okay? So that's that. We're going to label that. You write that out, okay? So cos of the angle, in this case, it's not A, it's B, because that's the angle I want, B. Cos of B is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent is A, hypotenuse is 12, and you end up like this. So cos 25 is equal to A over 12. Okay, there are two types of questions. The easiest is when the A is on top here, the unknown is on top, and when you want to solve for that, what you're going to do is take this 12 and just take it across, and you're going to multiply 12 by cos 25 and get your answer. All right, so that's how you do that one. The second question, very similar. I'll whip through this one a little faster than the last one. Again, I want to find a side, so I want to find little b. Okay, so little b is this guy here across from big B. Let's label hypotenuse. This guy's hypotenuse across from the right angle. Hypotenuse. Next up, because it's across from the angle that I want, or that I know, sorry, this will be opposite. So this is opposite. And what's left over is adjacent. Now, you don't need to label adjacent in this case, but it's better if we do, if we label this way. Now, the question is, what is the side, the length of side B? That's this one over here. Okay, so I want to find opposite. I know the hypotenuse. So opposite hypotenuse back up here, which has O and H in them. O and H is sine. So I go sine of my angle. So I'm going to write this out. Sine B is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Sub in, sine 10 is equal to little b over 15. And sub in, after you sub in, you're going to solve for b. You take this guy and move it up top here. Okay, and then multiply it out and you get this. So that's finding a side. There's one other type of question. It's the same thing. We're going to label. So if we went ahead and we labeled, if we pause this video for a second and I said label this, okay. In this case, again, we know B. I don't know why we know B every time, but we do, okay. A is probably feeling a little left out, but anyway, this is hypotenuse across from the right angle. Across from the angle that we know is opposite, and then across, and what's left over is adjacent. And the question now is find side A. Side A is this one. So we want to find it adjacent. We know opposite. Opposite and adjacent is tan. So you're going to write out tan B is equal to opposite OPP over ADJ. Okay. Tan B is equal to opposite over adjacent. And, oh, I can't wait to play one of those rap songs for you again. The teacher singing. I just remembered. There's one. There's a good one for this. Tan B is equal to opposite over adjacent. And then you sub in. My opposite is 35. My adjacent is, I don't know. My angle is 40. So now I have tan 40 is equal to 35 over 8. Now, this one's a little different. Okay. So you might have noticed that this one's slightly different because the A is on the bottom. So the unknown's on the bottom. This takes a little more work, I guess. I'm not sure if it's more work, but it's different. What you're going to do is you're going to swap these out. You're going to cross multiply, take the A, move it up top, take the tan 40 and move it down on the bottom. So you go A equals 35 over tan 40. So the difference between this question here is the unknowns on the top. If the unknown's on the top, you're going to end up multiplying. If the unknown's on the bottom, you're going to end up dividing. Okay, so and then throw that in a calculator. All answers to 1 decimal. That's a common question. How many decimals? One decimal is perfect. Okay, so check out the homework next. Okay, so if that confused you, write me an email. Watch this video again. Take your time. Okay, and that is the note in its entirety. Okay, so let me go back to here, and then that is that. Okay, trig. Nothing new, I don't think. Any questions? No, nothing. All right. So I got nothing else for you, unless you guys want to ask any actual questions like about anything else, about how the course works or anything like that. You have a quiz of some sort towards the end of next week, probably, or maybe the week after. Okay, don't worry about that. Okay, and that's all I got for you. Okay, so I'm gonna stop recording this now.